sometimes we sit down with an author and we kind of just get going on a conversation, right? And that's what I did today with my guest. One, I met this woman a few months ago, and two, I have talked to her, through the DMs and other methods since our first meeting. So I did know a little bit about her before we got going in our conversation, but it was such a fun time. We discussed disability, we discussed writing habits, we discussed authors that we admire and finding community and the passions that we put into our books and why. And I think it's really important to be able to find people that you may be different from, but you can connect with in so many different types of ways. And when it comes to writing, I think that's really important because without community, or at least someone who understands and can like have a conversation with you about various things, it's really hard to continue doing that. And if you're not a writer, trust me, it gets really difficult sometimes. And being able to just kind of sit down for 30 minutes, 5 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, however long, you might have with somebody and just talk about whatever might come up when it comes to the writing process or just little tidbits of your life if you feel comfortable doing that is so fun and interesting. And having the time to go over the various little things that me and Melissa did on today's episode was a blast. We had a lot of laughs and had a little bit of frustrations, like commiserating over similar things, and talked about a number of authors. One of my favorite people that we mentioned was Margot Hendricks. She's a retired professor at this point, from California, and she studies race and literature, and she has published books under her government name, and then she also is a romance writer under Elizabeth Grace. And um, I don't know. When I talked about her, I was just so happy and passionate about it. And I think that kind of touches on the overarching part of the conversation that me and Melissa were having about how you connect with community and like the different ways that it can come to light. And when you get to that part about us discussing or me bringing up Margot Hendricks, I think you'll see what I'm saying. It comes up a little bit before and it goes beyond as well. But you can also see that thread throughout the entire time with the various authors that we bring up and the various scenarios that we talk about as we discuss her books. Please make sure you pick up Happy Ever Afterlife, which recently came out, and look forward to the other books that she has in the works and her backlist. Without further ado, let's tune in. How about we get started with you introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about how you started as an author?
Yeah, so I'm Melissa Whitney, and I write contemporary romance, and I guess contemporary romance with paranormal now. That I know it's like weird to say. That focuses in on not just people getting their happy endings, as we all love in romance,
Right.
but having conversations about disability and mental health woven into the fabric of my work. Like everyone, I am a voracious reader, and during the like the height of the pandemic, I work in healthcare. I was just consuming so many romance books, and I was just reading really good writing. And I have always had ideas for stories. When I was a kid, I used to write all the time, took creative writing classes in undergrad. But like everybody, I told myself, like, well, writing's not going to be a viable option for my future. And as a woman who is legally blind and ultimately will lose my vision from retinitis pigmentosa, I was thinking about like financial security and stability. So I went a different route, but the stories never stopped talking to me. And I kept
Yeah.
hearing a story in my head. And I talked to my husband, and then I sat down and I started to write the story. And then wrote another story, and then another, and then I was like, oh, I guess I'm gonna do this, and before I know it, I'm a published author.
Yes. So I wanted to get started with happily, but
Happy ever after life, yeah.
but before we get there, I want to talk a little bit about your process and how you go about like getting your books together and sitting down and writing them, and like what do you do to get yourself pumped up and do this, because we all know that it's hard writing.
It is. Like writing is not for the weak. You have got to be willing to like dedicate a lot of time, and you often have to tell like other parts of your life no, so that you can focus in on the writing. And so there's always a kind of a tightrope dance that you're doing. But for me, it always starts with the idea. I usually have an idea for a story, a concept, a premise. So, like Happy Ever Afterlife, I had this idea that was like rattling around in my head about a woman and a man who are investigating a like haunted mansion, and then they meet the original owners, and the original owners have, you know, obviously they're ghosts, and they have been in a marital dispute for nearly 200 years, and this couple is going to help this other couple resolve their issues and then fall in love while they're doing it. I just like it. It kind of blended my loves of like I love those ghost hunting shows. Those are
Yeah.
just those are my like comfort like foods. And of course, I love romance. And then, as someone who, with my master's in social work and a big believer in like therapy and the
Hmm.
process of resolving and working through and that healing journey, I was like, this kind of blends everything. So I started with the idea, and I usually workshop the idea. I'll chat with people. I run things past my husband, and I call it like the Liam Litness test. If he is like, yeah, this sounds cool, then I do it. There's been a couple ideas where he's like, no. um, and he's granted he's not a romance reader, but he seems to have the pulse. It's as he likes to say, he's like, I know what the ladies and the fellas and the non-binary folks want. So yeah, and then I sit down and write, and usually I also craft kind of like a my own music um soundtrack that helps me stay in the
Yeah.
mood. So like writing Happy Ever Afterlife, there was a lot of Hosier, some Evanescence,
Yeah.
um, weirdly Kelly Clarkson. Like those were kind of the artists I kept going back and forth
That is
to.
up here off to the side.
And I was like, wait, it's like all the stuff, and then it's like, and then Kelly Clarkson. What? Like you read the book, you get it. So I do that, and then I just write, and I'm a big believer in you write. You don't edit while you're drafting. You just
Mhm.
write the story, and then if there's stuff that I'm like, no, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, or I'm gonna change this. I just like note it in this like little like editing Word file I have of stuff. I'm
Mhm.
like, I go back and fix this and this and this, and then once I have the initial draft, just I give it a couple of weeks to marinate, and then I go back in there and I start the editing process. But that's kind of what I do. And then editing takes the longest. Usually drafting, like this book took longer than my normal process. I started writing it in March of 2023, and I didn't finish the book until late August of that year, the initial draft.
Mhm.
So that it took longer because I had a friend who passed away while I was writing the book, and it was the friend who I
Mhm.
like workshopped the book with. So it's like all these feelings.
Yeah.
But then editing the book itself, I mean, my goodness, August 2023, it's now May 2025, and it's finally coming out. So took a little bit of time.
A little
Just a little
bit.
bit.
I wish I had that ability, like to kind of sit with it a little bit longer. I don't even know what sitting with a book is. I'm like, I'm done. I want to get it out. Let me just put it. Just go forth and prosper.
I actually wish I could do that because I have author friends who are like, bam, 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 and it's out. And I'm like, ma'am, there is a whole year that is going to happen between the time I like draft and I mean, there are books that come out quicker.
Yeah.
I have a book that will come out in August that the initial draft was finished in um, I finished the initial draft in November,
Hmm.
and I have been like working with editing and all of that since then. And that will
Yeah.
come out in August, and that's probably outside of At First Smile. It's probably my quickest from initial draft to actual publication.
Wow.
Um, I don't know. I'm like me. I'm like a I've never thought I was a perfectionist,
Yeah.
but I have such a like innate like compulsion to make sure there's no mistakes in my books, like no
Yeah.
typos. Like that's like, and I know there's always going to be one, but I'm just
So
like,
frustrating.
well, especially when you're like the blind author, right? Because then people will say, and trust. I had another author who read my debut, and this is a seasoned author, and they literally like sent me this message and was like, "Oh, you wrote a nice little book here. I found a few typos, but that's to be expected because you're blind." And I was
Oh,
so, yeah,
no.
I know. I was, not interacting with this author again. And I was so like offended. And I talked to other authors, and they're like, "Girl, we are not blind, and we have typos in our books." And then
Exactly.
they sent screenshots of like trad published books with typos, and
Exactly. Wow.
yeah,
What is
yeah,
wrong with people? That is so inappropriate. What? Okay. Hold on.
yeah.
I didn't
I
like
I, I triggered
no,
you.
because like I'm not blind. I don't have any vision impairment, but like I look back over books that, like my first book I put out, and I went over it meticulously,
Mm,
constantly. And every time I went over it, I found another typo, and I'm like, okay, I
mm,
think it is finally good. I put it through like the word processor to check for typos. And then I was recently looking at it because I'm gonna like re-release it as a con exclusive.
mhm.
And I was like, what are all these typos? Okay, there weren't like a lot, but I was like, what is this? What? Oh my, what? So it's just wild for somebody to sit there and say, "Oh, well, it's to be expected." And I've read typos or heard like I'll have like Siri or something read
Mhm.
a book to me while I'm doing other things, and I'll be listening and I'm like, "That doesn't sound like the right word." So I'll pause and go look, and I'll be like, That's a typo, and it's a trad book." So it's just wild to me. How okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But I mean, but because of it, like I tend to hold on to it to the point that like my editor is like, "Honey, you just need to let it go. Let it go, Elsa. Just let it go into to the world." And then I do. But I will say I don't have, like, once in a while I'll have like a reader who will like message me and say, on page whatever I found like this one typo. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you know what? If I get like a lot of messages, then I'll go back and fix it. But if it's
Yeah.
just one, we'll let
It's
this go.
fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like we're human and we misspeak as much as we typo.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but it doesn't happen a lot, but it does give me like, and because of that, because like as a person with a disability, you often
yeah,
have people who are looking for you to make mistakes so that they can then point it out, and they think they're being helpful, but what they're really doing is reinforcing their perceptions of disabled people of like, oh,
yeah,
you can't hang, and I'm going to let you know you can't hang, but that's okay. That's okay, honey. We get it, right?
yeah,
It's very patronizing. So I've like figured out like that's been like an interesting part of this journey. It
yeah.
doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen, and I'm actually amazed that it actually happens more with authors than it does
Mhm.
with readers, which is really interesting.
Yeah, that's frustrating. I was just gonna mention like this when we both went to sports romance con, right? And I
Mhm.
remember sitting on the diversity panel and everyone talking about like the difference in how people view what diversity is in a book, which also chimes in on how people perceive how an author should handle certain situations. So if you have a disability and you represent that disability in your book, then it has to be perfect in their eye of whatever that disability is supposed to look like. And it's just
Mhm.
like everyone is different and this is fiction also, but also it's educating. So do understand. Plus, it's a damn typo.
Just let me have my time. But I mean, it is like, I mean, that's the interesting thing. When you come from a marginalized community, people have perceptions of how that marginalized community should be. So they're like, oh, you are like you're not fitting the type of disabled person I think you should be, or the type of, insert the community that you're from that you should
Yeah.
be. Which is always interesting, right? And sometimes I'm very tongue in cheek about it. I'll be like, "Oh, sorry, I'm not that blind girl," or you're looking for that other type. I'm your
Right.
discount like TJ Maxx blind girl, you know.
I mean, yeah, it's wild because don't pile any type of community on top of another community. Don't have disability and ethnicity and sexual orientation, and like don't combine it, because then you got to try and navigate and swim through all. It's
Right, because they're like, no, you're only one or this. It's like, no. There are Black disabled people. There are queer disabled people. There are like trans disabled people. There are uh, uh, Indian disabled people. There are indigenous disabled people. Like all the groups. We are everyone.
exactly
Yes,
exactly.
absolutely.
It's we can go off on a tangent about that for a very long time. We did have fun on our panel too.
We did. We did. It was a fun panel. I I will. All I have to say is mommy.
I knew you were gonna say it.
And for those of you who were like, what is this about? Listen, you guys slip in our DMs. We'll tell you all about it. But also, maybe go to Sports Romance Con next year because yeah, there's some fun stuff happens at those panels.
That probably was one of the top three highlights. I laughed so hard for so many hours. And we still use that. We still use that.
Oh my gosh, every now and then I just like slip into her DMs. I'm like, mommy. and I mean, and anytime like she and I interact on social media, my friend Megan, who's my PA, like just she will message me and go, mommy.
I don't know. That's going to be a thing for a while. I
It
mean,
is.
it was good. It was good.
Which is the funny. So, the best part of it is like I'm probably old enough to be her mommy, but
So let's just reverse it a little bit. It's
yeah,
fine. It's fine. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe not. Who knows? I don't know. Ages at this point are hard to guess. So
I mean, no, she's in her 20s. Well, if I had had her when I was like 12, honestly, like I'm
ooh,
not that much older, but I like to joke around that I'm like 82, and I
listen.
yeah, I
I
act
feel like
like I'm an 82. Like I have like a Maggie Smith energy. Like just give me some tea and let
that's a
me
good
like
energy. That's a good energy. That is a good energy. Who doesn't love Maggie Smith?
right.
I try to channel my inner Betty White. So yeah.
Ooh, I love it. Ooh, I love it.
hmm hmm Yeah, she's a goof. She was a goof.
Mm,
I am very much a goof. It's a thing. I try to embody it, but
mm, mm.
okay, we're off.
We're
Um,
off the rails.
listen, we have fun. We have fun.
Mhm.
But since we kind of know a little bit about your process and how you come up with your ideas and like what you do and how you sit down, I'm curious, like where you got the idea fully from, because you touched on it. You said you love the paranormal shows and
Mhm.
ghost hunters, and who doesn't? I mean, some people don't, but like, and then you of course love romance. But where exactly did the idea from Happy Ever Afterlife come from?
Yeah, so I mean, it was as simple as that. Like I was at the Southern California Writers Conference, and my friend Dustin, who I dedicate the book to, and I were just like laughing and talking about books. And he was a big nonfiction reader, nonfiction author, right? And I
Mhm.
just brilliant author. He had a book that unfortunately will not be coming out because he passed. His widower um, husband has talked to me about maybe like publishing it, and I hope he does because it was a brilliant book, and it was a
Yeah.
memoir about an experience in his life, and he and I have been talking about it, and I just had this idea. Like I had been watching a lot of ghost hunting shows with my husband. It's our at night we like to snuggle in bed and watch ghost hunting shows with me, him, and the pug. Again, that Maggie Smith energy. And, and we were just talking about like the goofy guys on the show. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, these guys are so like obnoxious. And then there was this one show where the guy was not obnoxious and he was just like this sweet golden retriever type of guy. Like, oh, I was like if I was, single, I would have such a crush on this guy. And then I thought about like what it would be like to be like a woman working on that show as a skeptic who maybe has like black cat energy, right? You know,
Mhm.
not the because like I think so much of like romance there again, and there's always exceptions, but a predominant like female archetype, and I write a lot of those are kind of the more sunshiny, right? I was like,
Yeah.
you want like a black cat who's been through trauma and like, but still is like kind in a different way, right? Because I think we
Yeah.
always think kindness is one thing. So all of this started to kind of convalesce in my head, or coalesce in my head. See, typo. Um,
See?
I it started to coalesce in my head, and then I had this idea, and then I grew up in a old Victorian that was like totally haunted,
Ooh.
and I was like, wouldn't it have been cool if like the ghosts had like talked to me and I got to like interact with them and help them resolve their issues? And so all of this kind of blended together with this like idea in my head. And then I said the idea out loud at this conference, and my friend Dustin, his husband Ben, and my friend Marianne were there 'cause we were at the cocktail hour. And
Hmm.
they were all like, oh my gosh. And Dustin, he was from East Texas. He's like, girl, you better write that book now. He's like, get upstairs in your room and write that book now.
Wait, I got a tear from that one. That
Yes.
was that was an accent. Oh.
Listen, there is a YouTube video of him. I will send it to you doing a talk at a conference, and you'll go, okay, yeah, no, that's him. But he was this nice boy from Pacoda, Texas. Just absolutely fabulous. Loved him so much. Just such a great human. And he encouraged me to write the book. And so I started it a month later, and I was about halfway through in June of that year when he passed. But I had like been messaging him, and the only thing he kept saying was just don't make it too dirty. The Lord is watching, Melissa. Don't make it too dirty.
That is very adorable. I'm sure he's very proud of you.
Oh yes, except he always calls me Melissa Diane. That is not my middle name. He'd go, Melissa Diane. Don't you have that girl sit on that boy's face?
Be like, well, why not?
I would tell him stuff, and he'd be like, Lord.
Oh. Look, I think, so quick segue. I sometimes I wonder when I'm talking to someone and like no one else is around, it's just like me and this random person. I'm like, are they really here? Or is this a ghost? Because when I was younger, I know it sounds weird, but when I but when I was younger, I saw dead people
Oh
because
yeah.
I would say something to like a sibling or my parent or an aunt or uncle, and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, that person over there is looking and said da da da," da." And they're like, "What person?" I'm like, "Right there," and they're like, "There's no one there," and I'm like, "Oh, cool." So like sometimes when I'm at airports or like
Mm-hmm.
cafes or whatever, and someone is like smiling at me, or I start having a conversation and there's not really anyone else around, or like someone will look over weird, I'm like, oh, am I talking to someone dead again? Because because I don't know. And so I think recently I was at work and like I was talking to someone, and then like another coworker walked over and kind of looked at me weird, and I was like, what? She said it, and they're like, they looked and then looked at me. I was like, there is a person here. And they're like, yeah, but like, y'all are weird. And I was like, okay, good. Okay, I'm not talking to a dead person. Cool. Because that would have been awkward. That would have been awkward. They were like, what? I was like, I was concerned that maybe I was sitting here in the middle of the hallway, surrounded by all of our coworkers, having a conversation with a dead person, and you were concerned for me. So
I
I'm just glad you also see them.
Rae, you're kind of giving me an idea for like another book.
You're
Like
welcome.
a woman who like has said like no, nope, nope, nope. I mean, I know that's kind of loosely like what like Ashley Poston's like The Dead Romantics is, but like she
Yeah.
knows that she can talk to dead people. Like she doesn't forget it, right? She just doesn't want to do it. Whereas like somebody who like thought like those were just imaginary people, and then as an adult you're like they were not imaginary people. I actually have like the
Yeah.
second sight.
Yeah. I literally sometimes will ask. I'll hear something and be like, "Did y'all hear that?" Okay, Carmen Lee and Mika James. And one of their kids, I forgot whose kid was with us at that point, but we went out for ice cream when I was in Atlanta one time. We were standing in the Baskin Robbins getting ice cream, and I heard someone call my name from behind me. And I turned around and looked at them, and they're like, "What?" I was like, "What do y'all want?" Like, I'm trying to pick my ice cream. They're like, "I didn't say anything." I said, "No, someone distinctly said my name." And they looked around and looked at each other. It was just the four of us. My friend's son walked off like, "Nope."
It's like,
And they're like, "You cannot get back in the car if you bring in dead people with you." Somebody said my name, y'all playing with me. They're like, "Nobody called you." And I was like, "Okay."
I believe that like I've been told by people I'm very like sensitive, right? Like I feel things, or like I'll like my husband and I will go on these like ghost like haunted tours and stuff, right? And
Mhm.
we'll be in a place and I'm like we were at Rolling Hills estates in well, it's Rolling Hills Asylum
Mhm.
in East Bethany, New York. Google it. And it's super haunted. And we were on a tour and we walked into this one part, and the woman who was guiding us hadn't said anything yet. And I go, I'm sniffing. I go, honey, I smell cigarette smoke. I think she might have somebody who's been smoking down here, right?
Mhm.
Lamb's like, I don't smell anything. So then she walks in. She goes, okay, so this is part of the old dormitory, and this actually caught on fire back in like 1930, whatever, and
Oh
because somebody
wow.
fell asleep with a cigarette.
Huh.
And my husband was like, no. He's like, every flipping time we go to something, he's like, you have something happen. So and then we were walking down the hall, and I felt like I was towards the back. At least I thought I was at the back, and I felt like somebody was behind me. Just like I
Oh.
could feel the breath like on the back of my neck.
Oh.
I was thinking somebody's like really close. So I tap my husband and I'm like, honey, is there someone behind me? And he looks and he goes, no, there's nobody behind you. And he goes, do you feel someone behind you? And I said, yep. So he just immediately puts me in front of him. It was like
Oh.
it was like a my wife moment. He like,
Yeah, like mine.
yes. And he goes, she is with me and you will not mess with her.
Oh,
I
I
know.
love the support. I love the support.
It's just so but then like we got to like the room and she was talking, and then I asked a question. I said, hey, does anyone ever feel like they're being like followed in that hallway? And they said, yeah, periodically people say that they feel someone behind them. They'll feel like someone like breathing on their neck, and and she like looks at me and I was like, yeah, that's happening.
She's like, "Okay, well, yeah."
Yeah. So whatever like
Um,
energy I'm putting out there, apparently some ghosts are like
Hi.
they're liking it. They're liking my vibes.
Yeah, I don't know if you know who Lisa Kessler is. She's
Hmm.
a paranormal. Oh, okay, I love Lisa. Oh, she has said some of the wildest stories about like when she lived in California and worked in San Diego.
Hmm.
You have to have a chat with her. I don't want to share her stories because I don't know like how widely she has said them. Because there's some things she said publicly, but there was one story she gave, and I said, "I'm sorry, what happened to you? Where?" And you stayed working
I am really curious, and I
there?
know there is the Del Mar Hotel down there that's like supposedly like super haunted.
One
We
of her
haven't.
favorite places, apparently. So you should
Yes,
have a chat with Lisa.
you have to connect with her. It's amazing, like that. I am just now getting into like writing something paranormal because I love the paranormal stuff. I just like not just like reading it, but
Yeah.
watching paranormal documentaries. I mean, my
Yeah.
poor husband has gone on this paranormal journey with me over the last years. Like, I still remember making him watch his ghost hunting shows, and he's like, "This is stupid." And now he's like, "Oh, honey, Amy Bruni's got a new special on her. Oh, Amy Bruni's coming to Santa Ana. Do you want to go see her? She's got a new book out." I'm like,
Like, oh, now you see, I put you on. I put you on. You know. But speaking of this being like your first venture, so have you just like is this literally the first book that you've ever written that's paranormal, or is it just the first one that you've published?
it's the first one I've written. It is the first time I've like played with it. And I was like a little nervous because like this is definitely like you get like a little bit of like it's a slow burn with the romance, but it's also a
Yeah.
little bit of a slow burn with the paranormal because
Mm-hmm.
I want you to experience kind of like Nora's world of the way she sees the world. And you
Mm-hmm.
get like early on in the book some clues of things that like may or may not be paranormal, but again, like Nora, like this is told through Nora's perspectives, right?
Yeah.
So you're not going to bam, here's the ghost. I want you to experience what she does, kind of that slow interacting with them, and then when she finds out they're ghosts, she's like, "What?"
Oh.
Yeah, and then when it happens, it's like full on. Here it is, because then she's finally willing to like open herself up to this world and realize
Yeah.
what's happening, and that simultaneously helps her open herself up to other things too. um so yeah, this is my first time doing this. I The book that I have coming out in August has a supernatural uh like tilt to it too.
Mhm.
I'm really excited about this book. It's delicious. It's um it's kind of the same thing. Like there's a couple of chapters until you get to kind of the supernatural thing, and then when it hits, but that's because these are stories from people who don't believe in this, and then suddenly they're in this, right? So
Yeah.
you have to spend a little bit of time like in their world. So yeah, it's I have other ideas for supernatural stuff, so we'll see if I go down that path fully. But I
Yeah.
also have a lot of just contemporary stories that don't have supernatural that I like. I'm like right now I'm writing that book about a woman who's blind and running a marathon with her brother's grumpy best friend. So because I love a brother's best friend trope. Like I
Look, I was gonna ask. So I was gonna ask, were you out of your comfort zone when it came to this? But you did say it was like a little bit different, right? Like, so you had to kind of see if you could really pull it off. But then I was like, okay, well, you kind of hit on that, so I don't really need to nail down again if you're out of your comfort zone. And was gonna ask, what's your favorite trope to write, or does it kind of vary? So obviously, it's brother's best friend.
it's well, this is only my second brother's best friend, so I definitely think my like the trope. It's funny because like I don't like go into writing a book with a trope. Like afterwards, I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, I guess this trope or this trope. Brother's best friend, like I made a conscious decision for this book. I
Okay.
wrote Brother's best friend with Coming Home, which is a Little Women inspired small town romance, and it was
Yeah.
just like really fun to play with those dynamics. This idea of because with Brother's best friend, depending on how long that person's been in life, it's also like a friends to lovers story, and
Yeah.
I love a friends to lovers like that foundation. I have a couple of friends to lovers books that are coming out. So I think those are my fun things. I think the only thing it's not really a trope, but I give me a golden retriever or a cinnamon
Mhm.
roll male main character. Like that's my
Mhm.
comfort zone. I think the Garrett, who I'm writing right now, is like I would call him like a crabby or a cranky golden retriever.
He's like, I'll do it, but like, ugh,
Yeah. Like, yeah,
I
he
don't
like,
want to do it, but
yeah,
like,
but he's also like, he's probably the most like protective male main character I've ever had. Like, super, like, my woman. Don't you hurt her. Don't look at her wrong. Um, but yeah, I would say those are like mine. Otherwise, I don't really have like similar tropes. I mean, there are things you can always expect from a book. Like, you are always going to have a female main character that loves a pastry and loves a cup of tea. Um, And for the most part, well, here's the comfort zone for this book. I didn't have a dog in Happy Ever Afterlife. This is my first book without a dog, and like my husband still thinks that I should have went back and rewrote it, and he's like, "We should have like a ghost dog," and I was like, "Absolutely not, Liam. Absolutely, how dare you!" I was so mad. I was really mad at him, like holding our pug, and I was like, "You don't get to hold Milo after that comment."
You know what's so funny, and it's something I didn't realize was a thing when I had first started writing. But then a friend of mine who they don't write exclusively in romance, and they're still
Mhm.
working on like doing their books or whatever. But they had mentioned that they were going to kill a dog. And that was the reaction. Everyone in this big Zoom that we were on, because it was our writers group, was like, "You better not do that. How dare you? You don't kill kids. You don't kill dogs." And I was
Yeah,
like, okay. Okay, hold on.
joke. The joke.
So
I
yeah.
no, no. I'm still angry with Jojo Moyes from the Giver of Stars. It's one of my favorite books. And she has a scene with I'm still. I know, like I get it, but like I just that ripped me out. And I know there's the the Threads drama happening right now with that heinous comment from an author. But yeah, I say especially in romance.
Wait,
Uh,
I think there's
you,
something.
yeah, like I didn't realize like there are people who have reached out to me because they see dogs in my covers and are like, hey, so nothing happens to the dog, right? I was like, the only thing that happens to that dog is they get lots of belly rubs, they get treats,
Hmm.
they get snuggles. The worst, absolute worst thing that might happen to the dog is they might like walk into the room while my characters are getting it on. Like that's it. Like that's the worst thing, and they usually just
That's a
go,
little doggy trauma.
yeah. And
Like,
they
oh, I'm
yeah,
gonna
like, whoa, I should have knocked. I'm gonna go back into my bed. See y'all later. Um, but yeah, like that's it. So yeah, I don't get people. But yeah, I explained that to my husband. He was like, oh yeah, that would be sad. So this is my one book, except for what I'm writing right now, that doesn't have a dog, and it feels weird.
go. It didn't fit in. It didn't fit in.
It really didn't. It like I didn't want to shoehorn because there are people like you can tell they shoehorned like certain things in like dogs or whatever, or they shoehorn their characters from other books into it, and it just doesn't feel like genuine. It doesn't feel like authentic. I
Yeah,
don't mind like little Easter eggs and stuff. Like I think those are cute if it's done in a way that like feels like it fits with the story. And it just
yeah,
unfortunately there was no puppy vibes in this story.
yeah. I don't think I'm trying. I was sitting here the whole time trying to go back over my catalog, and I think I mentioned a dog in one series the one I had mentioned earlier about re-releasing it as a con exclusive. She mentions her dog, but like her mom took her dog from her, so she doesn't actually have her dog, but she talked about her dog a little bit.
Mhm.
And then in Uncovering Her Petty, um, they her and her it's a second chance romance. So her and her ex, when they get back together, he buys her daughter, 'cause she has a toddler, and he
Mhm.
loves her daughter. She had won a puppy, like a stuffed puppy, when they went out for Valentine's
Mhm.
Day. And so she kept saying she wanted a puppy and she wanted a puppy. And so like toward the end of the book, for her birthday, he buys her a dog, and it was the
Aw.
cutest thing ever. Because
Aw.
but I don't think I've ever really included any type of animal to an extent, because I didn't grow up with animals. My mom
Mhm.
was not a big furry person. So me and my siblings wanted a dog, and we rescued a dog, and she was like, "Give it back." We were like, "Give it back to who?" It
This is
ended up being
ours.
like the fire station's dog that got away somehow. So we did take it back to the fire station that was down the street from us. But we were like, "But can we have a dog?" She said, "No, I don't want those in the house." We're like, "But mom, we'll
Oh,
take care of it." We had turtles and fish growing up. So
aw. So you had
never really.
something.
Yeah, sorta. That's a whole other story.
I mean, your female main character could have a turtle next to them.
Aquarium.
Yeah, I grew up with dogs, and so it's very natural. I have dogs that like are part of the meet cute, like finding home. There's the pug is
Mm.
part of the meet cute. Well,
Mhm.
the pug and then a baby goat are part of two different meet
Oh,
cutes. Yeah, because they're just so cute.
they are.
It's like baby goat. They have pygmy goats, and I jokingly tell my husband, I'm like, let's get a pygmy goat. He's like, honey, we don't live in like the rural part of Southern California. He's like, not getting a pygmy goat.
You'd be
Um,
surprised where you can find one. Okay.
yeah.
Do you know, have you ever heard of Pierce College over in the San Fernando Valley? Okay, I went there. I know I'm putting out information I shouldn't. Because like it was a long time ago. I went there and we have a farm, and I remember I wanted to do a story on the farm because nobody really talks about it that much, and they had some, so I went and up because people don't really go up there to the
Mhm.
actual farm, so I got to go up there and see all the animals, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in heaven. It was the cutest baby animals, like
Mm.
baby anything you could think of. And I had so much fun up there. And I didn't realize how many animals that you wouldn't think you'd find in a like literally urban area because it's
Mhm.
so many houses. There's no farmland around there besides the school. But there were so many there. And I was just like, oh, this was built as an agricultural university or
Mhm.
junior college. So like it makes sense that there's this huge farm. They do the equestrian studies and all the different types of stuff there. But yeah, if you want to just, well, that's kind of far from where you're at. But if you want to just go over there to see the little pygmies, they're there.
Well, you find them at the Santa Ana, or not the Orange, the City of Orange's like regional park. They have like a little
Oh,
zoo, and they have like you can feed the goats, the baby goats. So
so
we
cute.
do that when I need my goat fix. Gotta get
They
my
are
goat.
the cutest things. They are so adorable and so sweet. They used to, I think we had like goat yoga and they would bring the goats down as one of
Yes,
the
yes.
activities they did on campus too. It was fun.
Yeah,
I kind of missed it.
I would love that. My husband's like the pug would probably not appreciate a goat sibling. So
I guess. I mean that makes sense. But pugs are yeah, pugs are like golden retrievers.
like my pug is just like Milo wants to just snuggle. He's very much a mama's, but he's not happy right now because like he's in with daddy while I'm doing this podcast with you.
Yeah.
He's just like, why am I not in the room? Because he's with me whenever I draft. Well, draft
Oh,
editing, like every book I've written, Milo has like rode shotgun for. So that the kids. That's why there's dogs in the book because there's always a dog in the room with me.
right? Like how can I avoid it? Coming back to us having met at Sports Romance Con. That was what, end of February?
February, yeah, end of February.
So not too long ago, but I moderated that panel with you and
Hmm.
a bunch of other great authors. And so I know that like listening to you speak then and then seeing like you on social media and kind of like as we've sat here and talked, you're a very big advocate of like disability for inclusion, equity, like positive things, everything moving forward. And so I'm like, is there anything that would make you stop doing that? Obviously, that answer should be absolutely not. But, what do you think would happen like if you stop being a big proponent of change and like inclusion and fairness?
Yeah, I would be dead, and probably then I would just come back and haunt people to do it. You kind of staying on brand with this book. No, nothing, nothing.
It does.
I was talking to my husband about this. So I know you and I were chatting beforehand. Like I don't know what it is. Like I grew up in a pretty conservative area in Western New York. Like where they jokingly say like it's a blue state, but we're red country. And these people, and predominantly like a white community.
Mhm.
And I was the only like physically disabled child, right? That like kind of outwardly like the only blind kid. So I got, I had all that fun stuff to deal with. Kind of
Mhm.
being ostracized by other students, and then like treated differently by teachers. Like so, I always understood what it was to feel like the other in the room. And I don't and it could be that like sometimes the personal helps shape your political beliefs. And I have memories of like as a kid, and I just this really vivid memory I always tell my husband of. I was in third grade, and our third grade teacher was teaching us about laws. And she said, "What are some laws?" And I raised my hand and I said, "Well, I was watching The Fresh Prince of Bel Air." No joke. I was like, and Carlton and Will got pulled over, and the police officer said it was because they were driving too slow, but it really was because they were black, and racism is against the law. That was exactly what I said. And here I am, like, and my teacher looked at me and goes, "Okay, who else?" And
She said, "No, not today, ma'am." She
she
could have
was
ran with it. She could have been like, "Yeah, let's talk about it." But she's
I,
like, "Nope."
exactly. She was like, "Okay, no." And I remember that, and I remember even at third grade, like, what are you, like,
That
seven
was
in
such
third
a
grade?
really
Yeah.
hard episode too.
Yeah, and that episode stuck with me. I was so young, right? And even that, I was like, that's wrong. Like, you should not be treated differently. And for me, like, it wasn't like, oh yeah, they were like, they broke a speeding law, right? Like that. No, it's really, I was like, even like at 7, I was like, racism is wrong. And so that's just how I've always been. And so I've just evolved. And I recognized growing up, one of my best friends growing up was, she's half white and half Hispanic. Her mom is from Spain, from Galicia, and her dad's family is from Ireland. And so she dealt with a lot of discrimination in the community that we grew up. Now, where I grew up, very a lot of white people, right? And like every rural community, I think it's very much evolving and becoming a more open and inclusive space, but it still has a journey that it's on. And my friend Pilar is very much a part of that because she lives in that community as a business owner, and I think is really helping move things in a good direction. They have a phenomenal like librarian who's like there's all of this good stuff happening. But like as a kid, I just like I saw that, and I know it started from me feeling like kind of othered, and then recognizing this in other people's journeys and being really mindful and cognizant of that, and educating myself, like even as a teenager, like being thoughtful about what books I was choosing and reading. And I'm like 16
Yeah.
reading Richard Wright and James Baldwin and Zora Neale Hurston, and having people go, "What?" And just being conscious about it. And then when I was in undergrad, taking coursework, I did my minor in African American studies, and I
Mhm.
had a dual major in history and women's studies. And most of the historical classes I took kind of focused on like multicultural history, not just like American white history or
Yeah.
European white history. Even though I am an Anglophile, I will own that. So yeah, and that's just it. And so I've always tried to be thoughtful and open, but I also know that I always get it wrong, and
Yeah.
recognize that in myself and just continue to grow and do better. But yeah, I'm going to continue to fight, because I don't know any other way to be. Like, just
Yeah.
if I see someone being mistreated, I'm going to say something, because like I know what that feels like. And even if their mistreatment doesn't have any impact on me, it does have impact on me because I have empathy, because they are a fellow human. And
Yeah.
like that should just be the core like thing that we do anything, is that like we're fellow humans, and we should take care of each other.
Yeah, but we live in rough times, and some people just don't care. But
I
I think we have to have another conversation about this off
know.
the
Hmm.
time frame, but of the podcast. But I know you had mentioned you have your degree in social work, and I was like, yeah, I was gonna do that, and then I remembered I'm an emotional goldfish, so. But I do have my degree in sociology, and my favorite thing was
Hmm.
cultural anthropology and women's studies and all of the sociology classes that focused on understanding how people's minds work. So it's frustrating to me that I can understand hive mind, even though I disagree with it so vehemently, because it's
Hmm.
just like I get why people fall into it, but like you were saying, growing up, you recognized that something wasn't right. And so you didn't fall into what you could have
Oh yeah. Whenever
easily.
Yeah, whenever anyone says like, "Oh, they're just a product of their community or they're a product of their culture or their time," I call BS on that, because when you look at history, there has always been voices who have stood up for justice. Like we look at the things like the history of the Quakers in the United States and how they stood up against enslavement. They stood up for female suffrage. They stood up against the war in Vietnam. Like all of like we think of kind of the major historical plot points just in the United
Yeah.
States, right? There were people who stood up, right? There were people that stood up against the transatlantic African slave trade
Hmm.
who were part of that time period, right? There were people speaking up for queer communities who were part of that time period that they were in, right? So
Hmm.
that idea of like, oh, someone's just no, no, I
I
think
mean, there were
we let
issues
people
with
up.
all of the people who were standing up during these times. Sometimes there were
Oh
still
yeah,
like little problematic things, but yes, the fact that they were standing up and trying to help is what our current environment is trying to erase from history.
correct.
Um, I will leave it at that.
No, yeah, 100%. And yeah, no, nobody is perfect, and that's why I said earlier, like I'm gonna get it wrong. Like, I might have like good intentions to be inclusive and supportive and all of that, but I'm gonna say and do the wrong things. And I think when we recognize that and we own when we say and do the wrong things and try to do
Yeah.
better the next time, that's all any of us can do. And if we expect perfection from people, we will always be disappointed.
Yeah. I don't I know the point of the word perfection, but like it doesn't really exist. So yeah. I'm just curious, let's pull back to kind of like your writing process and some of what kind of gets you through going, into actually sitting down and writing. What do you find to be the most challenging part of that?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, like so many other authors, like trying to make the time, because I work full time. I have a
Yeah.
husband. I have a demanding pug. I have a life, but I sometimes I have to choose. Like, I will be cognizant. Like this weekend, I'm at the tail end of writing this draft. I really want to get this draft done this week, so I know the rest of today and tomorrow, that's going to be my priority and that's what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah.
So I think as an author, you have to look at your schedule and you have to decide what you're going to say no to and what you're going to say yes to. And just be mindful of that. If you really want to write a book, you're going to have to say no to a lot of other things. There's no other way about it. And you just have to
Yeah.
make the time. And that's what I do. And then when I feel like I'm getting like a little burnt out, I take take some time away from it. I mean, I try to write at least write or edit at least 1 hour a day. If I
Yeah.
just hit that, I'm good. But if I need to just do that and then spend the rest of the day doing other things, then I need to do that for me.
Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks to you, I found out one of my coworkers is also a romance writer.
I know. I was so excited.
We actually chatted, like we had a coffee date virtually,
Aww.
and we're chatting, and we kind of were because we can commiserate over
Yes.
the fact that work is so hard, even though like she is at a different level than me, so her workload is different. We understand like the demands of what the company asks for, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we were chatting and she was like, how do you find the time to write? Because I'm not envious, but I'm envious of how sometimes other people can jump in and be like, oh, I wrote 10,000 words. And she's like, sometimes I don't write any words like, oh, for a month. And I'm like, girl, I don't know. I have literally come down to in the morning when I'm getting ready, I'll just like put on my headphones,
Mm-hmm.
and as I'm getting dressed and getting my stuff together, I'll dictate and then I'll put it in a Google Doc. And on my way to work, I take the train. So I'll edit what I dictated on my way to work because I'm on the train and not doing anything else. I'm just like
Mm-hmm.
listening to music and going over the words that I wrote. And so then I find myself like making little moments because it'll be, 30 minutes, 45 minutes of me being able to do something besides just sitting on the train and people watching, which is so fun. But
Where you
otherwise,
get
I
ideas.
yeah, I totally get so many ideas. I walked out of my apartment one day and a couple who was, I think they were breaking up, Because one woman was like, "Yeah, but you never make time for me," and the other woman was like, "But I love you," and I was like, "Oh, I want to stand here and listen, but I can't because they'll see me. What's happening?" And I was like, "Hmm." And they're just standing outside my apartment door, like right in front of each other. Like the woman that seemed like she was breaking up with the other one was like super tall and kind of towering over the other one. And she's like, "Baby, but like you don't understand." And I was like, "I want to know what happened." She's like, "Yeah, but you never tell anybody about me." And she's like, "You just have to give me time." And I'm like, "I want to know the rest."
Listen, I want to know the rest. Like I'm not
Right.
even pretend when something like that happens. I'm like,
I
I'm
was trying to be nosy, but I was waiting for like my food delivery, and he walked up and handed it to me, and I was like, "If I stand here any longer, they will know I'm listening." So I had to leave, but I was just like, "Wait, she's hiding her from everybody? Why? Wait, is she in
ashamed
the
of her.
closet, or does she just not want them to know she's dating this woman? What's
Right?
happening?" I
Did
was
you do
so
something?
intrigued.
What?
But like you just have to make those little moments to kind of for you, whatever fits you. Because otherwise my work gets on my nerves and I am always exhausted after work. My brain feels like mud. So then I usually don't write during the week if I don't write in the mornings. So I feel you on the like finding the time to kind of sit down and take it when you can.
Yeah. I do what works best for you. Like I find that during the week, like I work right in the evenings. Like I have my old little routine and then at night I
Mhm.
write. And I usually do like an hour or two. And then during the weekends, that's when I get a bulk of my writing done. And I typically like Saturday mornings are like my big day. Like I get up, and no joke, I stay in my pajamas until like 1 o'clock because
I
I
feel
just
that.
sit in my room or my office and I write. And then 1 o'clock, I'm like, I smell. I need to go take a shower. And then I go take a shower and then like go do stuff in like the afternoon so I can like
Yeah.
refill my well, but or refill my well. Yeah, no, I'm with you. Now I'm like really intrigued by this story. Like in my head, I was like, oh, like Rae, you could take those two women and have that be a breakup, and then have it be a second chance where you
Yes.
find out like
It's
why.
been percolating in my head for about a year at this point because that happened last year, and I was just like, "But why is she hiding her from everybody?" And it didn't seem like they like she seemed like she was heartbroken, and she was just like, "I can't do this anymore. I'm tired." I was just like, "But what happened?"
I kind of want it to be like a mafia romance where you find out the woman that was hiding her because the woman who she's dating's father is the
The
detective
plot.
that put
Oh,
her uncle away, right? And so she's hiding because they want to like destroy her family, right?
you're giving me ideas. I don't
Yes.
have the
So you have
time
the
for
kind of
this.
the star-crossed lovers, like oh yes.
I'm slipping into my sapphic era. I just released like two cute little shorts in the One Page One Love charity
Mhm.
anthology. It's like flash fiction. Both of my shorts were sapphic because I have so many sapphic side characters in my books that my author friends are lovingly like, "Bitch."
You need to write this down.
Like I don't know another way to say it nicely because that is the nice way that they're like, "Why do you keep ignoring these lovely people on the side?" And I'm like, "I don't know because I wasn't sure if I should write it." They're like, "Okay, but you make them so dynamic on the side. Can you give us something?" I was like, "All right." So I'm like slowly slipping into it. You give me an idea, mafia? Yeah.
I'm just saying, the mafia does. I haven't written anything in the mafia world yet. I do have like
It's so
a
fun to read.
they are fun to read. They're typically unhinged, and I love a little unhinged. I have something unhinged outlined that is a dark romantic comedy, and we'll see if
I
I
have
write it. I
romance
told
too.
Yeah, I
You
told
have
my husband about it, and he just like stared at me for 10 minutes, and I was like, "No," and he just is like, "I don't know." He's like, "There's part of me that's like yes," because the way I described it is like, imagine you, but like a golden retriever type of guy who, like knows what he's doing is wrong, but obviously doesn't kill her at the end because like it's a romance, so there's gonna be
like
a happy ending.
a little bit of you mixed with like Dexter, mixed with like Because like he had the moral of like, I know what I'm
Yes, yeah, like
doing,
you
but
meets
I have a
Dexter
code.
meets vigilante assistant district attorney.
We have to talk more. I need to know more. We
Yeah,
gonna.
yeah. I had this idea during the most, and this is an offline conversation, the most unreal, unhinged jury experience of my life. That I was like, I feel like I should write just like like a little memoir about like, the 4 days I'll never get back of my life.
Oh no! Yeah, I need more details. I'm curious. I think you kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but how would you relate Happy Ever Afterlife to the other handful of books that you have already? Like, I know that obviously this is paranormal, so that makes a difference. But like beyond that, how do you relate it to your other books?
Yeah, so I would say the way it relates. So my writing is kind of Hallmark esque, where it's going to make you feel good, right? But there's spice, and then also it deals with like heavy topics, right? So
Hmm.
in all of my books, I take heavy topics, themes, and I weave it into kind of like this fun, cozy, romantic world because I believe that life is not a rom com and it's not a high drama. It's somewhere in between. And
Yeah.
those, and so are my books.
Yeah.
So it kind of is like in that essence. And the other thing about my books is that when you read my books, it's really clear that I read a lot of historical romance and I read a lot of like classic literature.
Hmm.
And I don't mean that like, it's a fancy classic literature. Get over it. Um,
You living at
no, but I
Regency
just like the
Palace
language
with
that I
all the
use.
handsome dukes that don't make sense.
Yes, yes. Like, why do we have like 45 dukes? Like, that's not how it worked. Um, but the language of like how historical romance is written, how some of
Hmm.
like when you read like the Brontes and Elizabeth Gaskell and like Austen, like the way the books are written and kind of that language and the imagery, I use a lot of that in my books. I would say like At First Smile is probably my least amount of that.
Hmm.
But the rest of my books are very much like that. And so for Happy Ever Afterlife, I took a lot of inspiration from especially like Charlotte Bronte's work, with just like how she writes a story of like going to a house and finding out that it's more than
Yeah.
what it is. Obviously, like Jane Eyre, and then the angst of like the romance. Will this couple get together? So that I think is very common in my work is
Yeah.
having like this, like being inspired by either like a genre of work or like a type of author and kind of letting that fuel the overall vibe of what I'm
Yeah.
going for. So that is definitely something that runs like a thread through all of my work. And then also like again the golden retriever cinnamon roll main male character. I just don't know how to function. Like my husband is a grumpy cinnamon roll. That I clearly have a type.
You clearly have a type. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
Um, have you heard of Elizabeth Grace?
No.
She writes, so Elizabeth Grace is Margot Hendricks. She's a professor from UC. Ooh, oh, I don't remember. She's gonna, she's gonna be like, "How you not remember?" I'm so sorry. I love you. I promise. But she's a Shakespearean professor, a historical
Ooh.
fiction, historian, and she's one of the most amazing women that I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. I consider her my second mama. But I met her in my writing group, and she has such fun books that are historical romances and also a couple of modern contemporary ones as well. But like if you like historical romance and stuff like that reflects it properly, but not to the extent where you're just like, okay, yo, calm down. She's fun. You would enjoy her. And she's a black historian. And so people like to try to argue with her about Shakespeare. And she's like, first off, do you understand how old I am? I'm not sitting here playing these games with you, honey. And I'm like,
I love it. I'm gonna write down her stuff. I mean, I loved finding like a new historical romance author. Like, oh my, I still love when somebody told me about Lisa Rain's Never Across the Highlander.
Yes. Yes. It's
That
such a
book,
good.
that book is.
Yes.
Oh,
Lisa Wayne was also in that group at one.
wait, how do I get in this writing group?
It technically doesn't exist in the same way that it used to anymore. But like I met so many amazing authors. Let that's where I met Lisa, Kessler,
Mm-hmm.
Margot Hendricks was in there. It was run by Tasha L. Harrison.
Oh,
Yeah. And so
look at you! That, I mean, that's
Robert
like
was in
a heavy hitter group right there.
it was amazing I had literally just started writing when I found like a random post that Tasha did about upcoming like the 20K in 5 day. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
But like it was I think in its second iteration at the time, and I was like 20K 5 days, that sounds interesting. I ain't got nothing else to do, let's try it. And I just kind of like fell in and fell in love with the group and like
Mm-hmm.
everything from marketing education to like how to talk to, because it was like trad indie and hybrid authors in there, so you got
Mm-hmm.
like how to market a book, how to create a PR plan, how to look for agents. And Mia Heinzelman was in there. I love Mia too.
Oh,
um,
I
Katie
just
Robert was in there for a period of time. She gave us some good information. um, it was just so many amazing hybrid and or traditional and just um indie authors that were in there that I have had the pleasure of meeting and literally hanging out with some of them over the years.
I love it.
Cover
Yeah.
design, like so much stuff. But yeah, yeah.
No, that group sounds amazing. I tell people like when you were a writer, because everyone's like, yeah, you do write your stuff alone, but
If you do,
having community is so important. And I tell like new authors like, yo, the best thing you can do is to build like genuine, authentic community. Like,
and be careful. Ooh,
yes, be mindful of who you're hanging out with, but like I can smell it like pretty quickly if somebody is like they're transactional with their relationship and it's about like what you can do for them. And people who just like have bad vibes, just stay away from them. um,
yeah,
but when you find the right people and you find people that you can talk shop with, you can support each other in writing and like as the craft, and you can answer questions, like it's great. I mean, Lisa, who you mentioned, like Lisa Rain, love her. She is absolutely lovely. And I had the pleasure of like getting to know her, and then last year hanging out with her at Steamy Lit, and
yeah.
she introduced me to Beverly Jenkins, and I nearly died.
Oh, I think everybody has a fangirl moment when it comes to Miss Bev. Oh my, I'm like, I want to meet this woman like so bad. And she was here, I think Apolycon was in DC what last month, and I was gonna go hang out with Kelly Kane, Mia Heinzelman, and a
Oh,
couple of other
Kelly
authors that
Kane.
went, but I didn't get to make it because like everything started Friday and we were supposed to go to dinner, and I had work obviously, and I was so exhausted that I can't. It was raining that day. I was like, I'm going home. I can't do it. But I was so sad because it was just so many amazing authors that I could have just run into in the hotel. And Kelly, oh,
Mhm.
I love Kelly. Kelly is such a sweetheart.
And her books make me hungry.
Oh, listen.
Hungry
Listen,
for many things. Her
listen,
books are so good.
they will make you thirst.
Yes, they're so good. I had the first book in that series.
The Everhart Brothers, or
Yes, the Everhart Brothers series, the very first book of it. The
I got
something.
to I got to arc read that. I was like, okay, okay, okay.
So
I want to throat punch the female main character, but I also enjoyed the book.
it was so good. I had saw a random. This is back when Twitter was still Twitter and before I left
Hmm.
it, because
Yeah.
and I saw like a random person tweet about the book and said, "Oh, I had a chance to beta read for this and it's out now." And I was like, "Oh, this book sounds really interesting. And then I'm like, I'm a mood reader. So like immediately I downloaded it and immediately just started reading it.
Yeah.
And I literally was like, oh, I'm just going to read like a few chapters. It's like up till 2 in the morning. I was like,
Read the whole thing. It was
yeah.
really good. I did wish that I got to hear from him, but
Mm.
like because it was times where I just wanted to throw her through a window. But like it was still really good. I still had a lot of fun with it, and I was so hungry.
Oh yeah.
I whenever I told someone about that book, I was like, please make sure you eat because you're going to starve.
Oh, 100%. It, yeah, you definitely like, you want to eat. But yeah, her writing is fun. It's
Yeah.
fresh. It's just, it pulls you in very quickly, which I really appreciate. Yeah, I thought it was so great. And I love the family dynamics in the book. Yeah, I love
Mhm.
Kelly Kane stuff. And so yeah, I need to get in this writing group because you've got like cool people in this writing group. And I'm like,
If
hanging out
I
with a pug.
Listen, come with they love kids and dogs, but like the group doesn't exist in the same sense. Like I think
Mm-mm.
it's just the 20Ks now,
Mm.
unfortunately for various reasons. But yeah, like um, I'm happy that I found it when I did because I think it helped me not give up. Because there were times where I was just like, "Ooh, this writing stuff is hard. I'm exhausted."
Don't give up. You're good at it. You're talented. You bring a lot of like light into the author space. So
Thank
please
you.
don't do it. Don't do it. And then also apply for Romance Out West. Yeah, I said it on the podcast. I'm trying to get ready to come to. Well, I
You
don't even
want
know
me to
if
go to Utah?
I'm. Listen. I'm like trying to get you to do it. I might not even get in. I mean, they had me this past year, and they might be like, never again. This woman is obnoxious.
Are you obnoxious, or do you just like are very passionate?
I mean, I think there's a thin line between obnoxious and passionate. I'm a lot at times, but I love hard. I support hard. But I'm also a Scorpio. So,
That makes
I will
sense.
cut a bitch.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's why you try to bully me. All the Scorpios I know do this to me. I'm a Cancer. And
Oh
so
yeah.
I'm like the mother sign that's like, okay, hold on. Let's just talk about it for a minute. But
But
every
you're also
Scorpio I
stubborn.
know, it's
Cancers
like,
are
no, just do it. Just do it. And I'm like, I need y'all to calm down.
Scorpios. We're water signs, but we're also like, we're a sensual sign. Very,
Y'all are
very.
like the fire of the water.
I'm very fiery. Very fiery.
Okay, so I'm curious if you had a chance to hang out with one of your characters for a day, who would you choose and why?
Oh my gosh. Oh gosh.
Speaking of you being all sensual and fiery,
I
would you
know.
like to choose the person you could chill with or the person you can chill with? I know you're
Um,
married, but it's fictional, it's fine.
listen. I will say this. Colm from In the Hello and in the Goodbye, which is my debut novel,
Hmm.
is 110% my husband. So like, if I picked him, it wouldn't be cheating because it is like all of our friends and family who read, like his mother read the book and she like sends me this message and it's like, I read your book, dear. And I was like, okay. And I was like nervous and she's like, you know, beautiful writer, blah, blah, blah. And then she just goes, I'm glad my son is very happy. And it was like, mom did not skip the spicy bits apparently. But I would say like, oh my gosh, I would love to hang out with I can't say Penn because I feel like Penn from At First Smile and
Hmm.
Elle from Finding Home are like the most like me, so that's like super narcissistic. Um, you know, I would say May, who is the best friend from um, Happy Ever Afterlife, would be super fun to hang out with.
Hmm.
May is just vibrant and fun and very much believes like, let me be myself, and is like
Yeah.
very comfortable in their skin. And you hear the story about like them kind of going on their own journey of comfortability of just being who they are and being. And them embracing themselves and then like the world also embracing them. So
Yeah.
I would say May, or from my book that will be coming out in August, the female main character, Georgia, is just so, I love her character. Like
Mm.
she's just, she's sassy, but she's also like, you know, quiet at times.
Hmm.
And she gets in her head a bit, but like she's someone that I could totally see like us going out for like mimosas and pastries and laughing our asses off. And she's also like a romance author and she loves romance books. So she and I could just
Y'all
get
have stuff to talk about.
yeah. So I would say those two people would be yeah. But if my husband was not in the picture, I would totally go for Rowan from At First Smile because I want an Irish Canadian hockey bad boy to talk dirty to me.
I mean, you wrote them for a reason.
Right? Right?
You wrote him for a reason. No, I love that question. I will randomly ask people like, out of all the characters that you've written, who you want to hang out with? And I always think about it myself, and I'm like, I've written a lot of characters at this point, and I can never figure out who I would hang out with because I think that I'm like, do they know that I wrote them, or are they just random people? Because if they know that I wrote them, they're gonna be like, why you put me through that? And
Wow.
if they're just random people, I'm like, you're cool.
No,
So
yeah. No, that kind of meta experience. Like, are they aware that we're the author of their story, you know?
yeah,
And are they happy with their story? Yeah, you're gonna really
yeah,
like my book coming out in August.
yeah. Speaking of that book, like, can you tell us a little bit more about it? That's what we're expecting in the near future from you, correct?
hmm so what I can tell, I'll give a few things. The book is called Book Boyfriends,
Mm.
and it is about a woman who is unlucky in love, and she throws a penny into a wishing well and wishes to know what her happy ending is going to be. And then the
Mm.
next day, three men appear in her apartment, all
Oh,
believing that they are meant to be her happy ending.
I'd be like, hold on, hold on, hold on. How did you get in here? You're also very handsome.
Yeah,
Why are you here?
all of those things, and they all happen to be the three male main characters in the books that she has written. Yes, so the book is about kind of exploring like what is a happy ending, and
Yeah,
are one of these men her happy ending, or is it somebody who she recently had a bad date with? So it's really fun.
that could have
Some
easily been a why juice.
listen, for like a hot minute, I was like, do I go there? Do I go there? But it's probably the most like farcical rom com I've ever written, but it also like has a lot of heart and depth.
Yeah,
It has chronic illness
yeah.
representation. Georgia, the female main character, has celiacs, and
Mm.
so you kind of have to see how she has to live her life managing like her celiacs condition, and the main character Davis is autistic, and so you get
Mhm.
to like see how he manages things. So there's a conversation about chronic illness and disability in the book, and then all the other fun stuff. And there's just like a cast of really fun characters, and a best friend that I think everyone like is gonna give May a run for her money because Hope is like pretty phenomenal. Yeah, and I'm really excited. The book will come out in August, where the cover is being finished. So we're hopeful to do the
Yay.
cover reveal and the blurb review reveal and all of that in probably in end of June, beginning of July.
Awesome. Clap, 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 clap,
Yay!
clap. So do you have any upcoming events or places that you'll be at for signings or anything like that that's coming up that people can connect with you at?
Yeah, I am going to be at the Fullerton Library in August for their Authors Day, and I cannot remember the date of that offhand right now. But I will be at Fall into Book Fest in September in California. It's the September 20th. The event is really affordable. So if you're in the Southern California area, or if you're like, I've always wanted to go to a one-day book event, but they're really pricey, super affordable. I think it's like like under $100 for the
I
ticket.
think so, yeah.
And I mean, like, I'll be there, but like Mallory Marlowe will be there. Fallon Ballard, Susan Lee, Andrea Anderson, like a lot of amazing romance authors. So you'll have some like big hitters like that, and then like some smaller authors like myself. And they'll have panels, and they're doing all this fun stuff. I went last year, and it was a really fun event. And then I'll be at Steamy Lit October 31st through November 1st, again in Anaheim. And all the heavy hitters will be there. And
Oh yeah.
I still think they had a clerical error. I don't know how I ended up getting in, but no backsies. Super excited about that. And then
I get to see
during,
so many people I know.
I know I'm just like the cast of characters that are going to be at that. I just, how am I at an event with like Nisha Sharma? This is crazy. Uh, So that week too, the 30th, I'll be at Radiant Beer Company here in Southern California, doing, it's called Happily Ever After, and like Regina
Mhm.
Black and Taj McCoy, myself, Lisa Rain, uh,
Oh, Taj is gonna be
yes, Julie Cho, uh, or Julie Chu, and several other like authors. My brain is like, wait, who else is going to be there? It's going to be there.
there.
That's a free event. There's
Which
going to
day is
be,
that again?
that's October 30th at,
Okay.
it's called Happily Ever After. And it's in Anaheim, California at Radiant Beer Company. It's kind of supposed to be like, kind of get your appetite wet for Steamy Lit.
Yeah.
Anyone can come. You don't have to be there for Steamy Lit. You get to meet the authors. There's also going to be friendship bracelet making. There's going to be like a fun bingo game. There's going to be prizes. There's going to be vendors. It's going to be like a whole scene, kind of fun thing. Opportunity to not just meet and greet with the authors, but with some fellow readers.
Yeah.
Um, and then I'll be at Love and Tech in November, which is up in
Ooh.
Silicon Valley. So kind of excited about that.
That's like mid-November, I think, right? Like the
Yeah, it's the
right
weekend before
before.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Oh, and for that one, as well as for the September 20th, Mr. Whitney will be with me. So if you want to meet the man behind the woman, those are the to go to.
You gotta go because obviously there's something there. Where can we find you on the interwebs?
On the interwebs. So I am most active on Instagram and Threads at Melissa_Whitney author. I am on the Book of Faces, as my mother-in-law likes to call it.
Me
I
too.
post there. Yeah, I post there, but I'm like super active on there. But I am on there. So if you are someone who is a Facebook person and you want to, you know, obviously you can connect with me there. Instagram, I'm most active in Threads. I did recently get back on TikTok, but I had because I deleted my account and like kind of rage deleted it after January 20th. I am now starting from scratch. I have like 26.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm like, oh man, I did not think this through. I should have, and it told me, it's like, are you sure you want to delete? Maybe just deactivate. And like in retrospect, I'm like, I should have just deactivated.
Yeah.
Um, but I deleted it, and now it's like it's
I
very
didn't
humbling.
delete mine. I think I was scrolling at like on January 19th. I was scrolling and then it just kicked me off and that little ignorant
Mm-hmm.
message popped up and I was so mad. I just went out and then deleted the app. But because I deleted the app, I couldn't deactivate or like delete my account. So I still had my account, but I couldn't get into it until they put it back in the Apple store. So I still have all my followers and everything, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to be here that much.
Yeah,
Although a lot of people still use TikTok.
yeah, book talk is still a big thing, and I was realizing, especially with this book, that I needed to get back on there, and so
Yeah.
I'm slowly rebuilding it, but it's so sad. It's like 26 followers, but whatever. And then I've had people who've like messaged me on IG like, "Hey, is this really you, or like, is there an imposter?" And I'm like, "No, it's me.
I
It's
think it comes up and your username is like a bunch of random numbers and letters. So,
I did get that fixed. So
okay.
You know,
I
it says,
remember seeing it and I was like, who the hell, what?
yeah. Now it's fixed. I figured out, I was like, and somehow I accidentally private. I'm like, listen, I am an elder millennial. So like the fact that I know how to use TikTok at all is amazing. But yeah, so I am back on it, but I'm most active on IG. But I always tell people too, if you sign up for my newsletter, because
Yeah.
I send that out once every couple of months. Like I'll be sending one out again this week. So that's always a good way to stay in contact with me. But IG and Threads I think are like my safe spaces.
Yeah.
Weirdly.
Yeah. I mean, it seems, yeah, I ain't gonna even go into it. That's a whole nother tangent. But
Yeah.
now we know where to find you. It has been such a pleasure chatting with you as always. Um, this has been Ray's Corner. I want to thank you, Melissa, for coming on today and giving us a taste of who you are with all the laughs, all the realness, all the fun about your writing process and everything else, because we know that writing can be lonely sometimes. Even when you write in community with others, you're still writing by yourself. And so coming together for something like this is fun because we get to know more about you as a person and not just the books that you put out. And you also kind of get a little bit inspired. You gave me a whole story idea that I don't have time to write.
Just dedicate it to me after you write it.
I am like, to Melissa Whitney, you did this.
This is your fault.
This is your fault. Enjoy. So, again, a huge thanks to you for coming on and telling us a little bit about your catalog. Make sure y'all check her out, especially her most recent book, Happy Ever Afterlife. I said
Got
it.
it. Happy ever afterlife.
I don't know why my brain is just like, why is that difficult to say? Anyway,
It's difficult for a lot of people, and I thought like in the hello and in the goodbye was going to be my hardest title, and I thought I was like really like cooking with fire with this one, but now I'm like, man, again, this title is difficult for everyone.
you're cooking with fire over wood that took a long time to get going.
So long, ma'am, so long.
But as a reminder, nobody puts Ray in the corner unless she's gushing over books. We are out. Make sure you check out Melissa. Bye.
Bye.